Welcome to the AAMI Alligator Tank at eXchange REWIRED. I'm Gavin Stern, editor-in-chief at AAMI and a resident Florida man. Here's how today's contest works. 3 contestants will each enter the tank and pitch their big idea to improve their field. They'll be up against our vicious tank of gators, all of them titans of the health technology industry. Each contestant will get 15 minutes in the tank, including time for the gators to sink their teeth in by asking questions about their idea. Any of the gators can make an offer to invest time in the project. If you receive multiple offers, you will need to negotiate and choose a gator. Then at the end of today's event, the gators will deliberate and pick a winner in private. The stakes are high. AAMI just launched a BMed apprenticeship program with the U.S. Department of Labor based on a pitch from this very tank. Okay, let's introduce our esteemed gators. We're joined today by Jennifer DeFrancesco, Associate Director at the Dayton VA Medical Center in Ohio. Say hi, dude. Larry Hertzler, Vice President of Engineering and Operations at Franciscan Health.
Hello.
And David Francoeur, Senior Vice President of Marketing Sales at Technology Associates.
Rawr. Glad to be here.
We're about to begin our competition with the first pitch. Will their ideas forever shape the face of health technology, or will they be torn apart like gator bait in a swamp? Find out today in the AAMI Alligator Tank. Our first contestant is James Linton. James, please reveal yourself to the gators and unmute your microphone. Okay, your time begins now.
Hi, everyone. I'm James Linton. I'm from Windsor, Ontario, Canada, and I'm a professor of biomedical engineering and a coordinator of my program at St. Clair College. I've been in the field for about 15 years, and I've got some questions for you, Gators. For one, does this ever happen to you? You're just working away, right? Working away. Ow! You know, you slip, you cut yourself, and you think, if only there was an easier way to learn to work on this equipment. Better yet, how do I even know this is what I want to do with my life? Has this ever been you? You know, you're just calling up local hospitals and going, hey, can I have a couple IV pumps to take home because I need to practice on them? Or better yet, can I book your MRI because I need to practice, I've got a test tomorrow and, it'd be real nice if I could play around with the magnets. You're probably going to hear exactly what I'm hearing right now. So the odds are it isn't. So instead, what happens? Well, students, they just throw a dart at a board, okay? That's what I did. That's what a lot of people do. And what do professionals do? Well, they deal with crippling stress trying to work on a machine for the first time, or build up that confidence to go talk to their boss and say, hey, I really want to move into this new area, but what if there was another way? Well, I'm here to tell you there is. What about virtual reality, right? It's not just in the arcade anymore. So imagine a student walks into a guidance counselor's office and they look around, and instead of reading books or talking about the plaque on the wall, they see this helmet. And they say, well, what is it? Oh, this little guy. Well, here, students can put it on and try out a day in the life of a biomed. If you want to actually try a career that's been rated as one of the highest job satisfactions with great opportunities, a growing industry, I guess we can book a couple minutes for you to try it out on virtual reality before committing the next 3 or 4 years of your life to it, or, your entire working career. Or what about if you're studying for your CBET and you want to spend some time with that MRI at midnight because you dressed in something business casual and then realized everyone else went completely business? Well, now at midnight, you can tear down that MRI from your house, right? Without upsetting the local health authority. So if this interests you, let me introduce you to the idea of try it before you buy it, okay? The biomed version or the HTM version. The idea is a virtual reality application created by biomeds for future biomeds with your help. So I'm proposing that we build a proof of concept VR app that works on most VR headsets and even a basic computer if they can't afford a headset. Now, if you can, just close your eyes and picture putting on that headset. I promise it's comfortable. And you're dropped into the middle of a biomed shop. You walk over to your computer, you see your CMMS, and you pick an item to work on, like an IV pump. Now you can either disassemble and reassemble it, pull it apart, look at the guts, You can perform a PM with a complete checklist to walk you through it. Or you can pack your cart and transport to a hospital ward where you've got clinicians yelling at you, you've got babies screaming in the background, you know, the real deal of what's happening. Now, if you do well, you know, you get a high score. If not, things start to get darker. You start hearing a heartbeat and you start getting that real world, you know, oh God, everyone's staring at me. By doing this, it's creating a gamification. And I promise that is a word. Gamification is when you take something that could be mundane and you make it into a game, okay? I've done this before in my classes where you put together a skeleton. Pretty boring, right? You had a scoreboard, everyone's doing it 2 or 3 times. A PM on an IV pump, you could have senior biomeds who want to see who can do it the fastest, right? Because we'll put a little star beside their name. Now, I have some teaching experience, right? 15 plus years, I've done it for a couple of them. So let me give you some rapid fire ideas and proof of concept. First off, VR excites kids and professionals in general, right? We're all technological people. But the amount of people I have that just walk by my class and they just happen to glance, someone going like this because they're going for a swim or something in VR, they just walk in, they love it. My marketing department, as soon as they found out I had VR, they come by every chance they get, show me off to all the high school kids, all the guidance counselors, things like that. Using VR itself though, what impact did it have? Well, I ran an anatomy class without it, all right? My average was 65 because I'm not the easiest teacher. I ran the same exact course, but with VR for the lab, and my average bumped up to 75, 10% increased intake. So imagine if we could use this with something like, I don't know, an apprenticeship for biomed, where students have to learn about different items. You know, another thing about this is it allows students of different backgrounds, regions, and physical abilities to be exposed to the biomed career path, right? Some people will think, you know, this is a completely male-dominated field, or, you know, I have to have a certain ability. Well, we know that depending on what area of biomed you're in, that may or may not be the case, and this will level the playing field. Be it if you live in the Arctic, if you are in a wheelchair, or if you're downtown New York, you would all have the same chance to try out what it's like to be a biomed. And one of the hardest spots for people to hire biomeds and get biomeds into school are these rural communities, right, where no one's even heard of it. I came from a town of 30,000. I didn't know what biomed was. I fell into it. I got lucky. So people could work on items like this light source and get hurt. Or what happens with most new biomeds? They're too paranoid and shaky because they're, oh, I'm going to break it. I'm going to break it. It's the only one. I'm going to get yelled at. If you put them in a virtual reality setting, that's not a problem. So they can practice that hospital setting without the pandemic, right? It's a safe space. You can work in an area like an MRI room without worrying about the safety, you know, oh crap, I left my cell phone on me. Oh no, I've got a piercing I don't want to tell anyone about. Things like that. Practicing anytime means convenience and no fear of being laughed at, okay? Not everyone has the confidence to say, hey, look at me, I'm working on this for the first time. So why do we need this? US schools are closing, right, at a rapid pace. There's more US retirements than there are hires. We want to make this field enticing and interesting, right? And taking advantage of human nature to be drawn to that new technology. So, is it going to work? Well, I use VR right now without even biomed specific apps, right? I use some, you know, Be Homeless for a Day ones. I use Anatomy, and it is so much better. It has helped get all sorts of marketing. It's helped with pretty much every aspect of our program, to the extent that I intake 60 new students every September. And this year, for the first time, our program's only been open 7 years. This year, for the first time, we actually overfilled for our September intake at the start of May. I have people calling me from the school saying, can you take 80? Can you take 100 biomed? How many students can we take in? This is why they're coming, because they love the technology. So this could also work with that apprenticeship model, however. So I just need to point that out, but I have been contacted by multiple media outlets. I've given print, radio, video, all sorts of interviews about VR. And I always circle back to biomed and how great it is for biomed. So if this was successful, right, let's say we do this, what's the future? Well, what I'm asking is that we work together with AAMI and we provide a free healthcare technology management trial app that can be used by all high school guidance counselors, career centers, and we could even push to fund a couple headsets for communities that are underserved. Okay, areas where we know this state doesn't have enough biomeds or things like that. And once built, we could then allow them to have their students try it on and just work on an IV pump, right? Things like that. They can actually see it and do it. Once built, and the proof of concept is there, we'd look for more partnerships to have more equipment, more areas, right? Instead of just a generic room, maybe we could show off what dialysis looks like or what Matt Child looks like. We could have them using more tools, right? More specialty tools. And they can practice using tools. The number of students I have coming in that don't know basic hand tools is embarrassing. And it's embarrassing for them. Not for me, I'm there to teach, but it is embarrassing. I've had students going to their placement when I was in the field that said, "What's this clicking thing?" And I said, "Hand me the ratchet." "Oh, it's broken, it's making this noise." Well, what if we could get that out of the way in VR for them, right? So then we could combine this with, in my vision, would be combining it with the current HTM in a box as a free to use tool to attract people in our field, right? So now you've got the presentation, you've got the swag, you've got all the different flyers to hand out, and you can actually say, "Oh my God, put on this helmet. It's pretty cool. Can you beat my score?" As for is this going to work? Well, let me leave you with this. In the learning hierarchy, students will remember and retain 5% of what I say in a lecture, 10% of what they read, 30% of what is demonstrated, but 75% of what they practice doing, they will retain. So if they do this, they may or may not choose biomed, but it will stick with them. It's not just a fleeting, "Hey, I saw the name biomed and it sounded interesting." So it will stick with potential students and those using it in their careers moving into new areas. So that's my ask from you, Gators.
Thanks, James. Very nice presentation. It sounds very interesting. A couple of questions. One, it makes sense that this could help you see what you would see taking something apart, putting it back together, where there really isn't the other interactions, even though you mentioned people screaming in the background, that kind of a thing. But do you think it could work well, really simulating real life, having that scalpel come flying at you in the OR because the microscope broke, or somebody standing over your shoulder, where it would really provide that environment to simulate kind of the stress that you're under, not just game stress. I have to do this in 15 seconds or the bell goes off, but something where you really feel why it's important for what you're doing. And are there some experiences you can point to where that really gets imparted as part of the VR training as well as just the technical side?
Absolutely. So I had a student in a previous lifetime, first day on the job as a biomed, took him out to lunch and we got a call to the OR. And this is where I've come up with the one scenario. And the goal would be to have every equipment having 3 different potential scenarios for it. In this case, it was an anesthesia machine. It's broken in the OR. You got to get up here as soon as possible. So I grabbed the new guy, right, fresh out of school. And they said, "Well, we don't have any spares. And this guy's got his chest popped open. And you got about 5 minutes left before he's going to wake up. So what are you going to do?" Now, luckily, this was a fairly easy fix, don't get me wrong. But the intensity in that room that you could feel, that's something we want to mimic by bringing in scenarios like that, having people say, "We need this up in 5 minutes." And as you're working on it, have different voice actors that could be a Gator per se, just yelling and saying, "My refrigerator guy fixes stuff quicker than this," or, "This guy's going to die. Should I go up golfing? Are you going to tell the family?" And we want to have little bits like that, as well as if they're taking too long, the screen starts to go a bit darker. and we have a heartbeat noise that just the thump, to really get into them. Because I don't know if any of you have ever been on a water slide where the footing drops out, but I was at one a couple of years ago, and they did that. As it gets closer to dropping, they play a heartbeat louder and louder, and it just builds this intensity. And that's what we wanted to do. And in some of the scenarios, we can have a time limit. And at the end of that time limit, the screen would go black, and it could just say, your patient died, period. So we definitely want to get the scenarios, but first it's that proof of concept that we want to get out there and, show the students, hey, here's the device, let's take it apart. Because I'll be honest, most people look at medical devices and they are intimidated, and they shouldn't be. What's an IV pump? It's a pump with a computer.
Well, James, I think I'm sold on this. I think I see where we could use this for recruitment. I see where we could use this in the academic setting. I see where we can use this in our hospitals, especially, people think of medical simulation as only nurses and doctors, but I can really see how we could utilize this, and especially the escalations kind of up or down in the real world. My questions may be more practical. What would it take to get this proof of concept off the ground? So do you need money? Do you need people? What type of resources would that take?
Right now, we're looking for partnerships. We're looking for, there would be a financial need, absolutely, but it would also be the time of coming up with the scenarios, seeing if we could get licensing for, right now I'm looking at it like I need to build an IV pump and have this generic IV pump for them to take apart. If we could get a partnership with a Baxter or someone and say, let me 3D render your item, that would really help move things along. But absolutely, it is mainly about getting that funding right now to build that proof of concept. And then I think there is a huge potential to approach people like GE and Philips and say, would you like to sponsor our MRI module that we're going to roll out? As long as it's not teaching them, here's how to fix it, just putting them in scenarios for it, I think we'd be fine with that.
So right now, no specific estimation for the proof of concept.
For proof of concept, we've heard about $40,000. Now, for the large one, because we've been working on this, myself and another couple people, we've been working on it for about a year now. For the larger goal, we would like to roll out 3 different items with 3 different areas and 3 different scenarios each. We were told we'd be looking probably around 200,000. But the goal is if we were to sell it, then it would be taking every dime and rolling it back in. But the preferred model is to, just come to organizations like AAMI and say, would you like to sponsor our IV pump module so we can pass that out to everyone for free? Because at the end of the day, all these extra modules are great, but I think the biggest issue right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the US is there's just not enough biomeds. And by the way, I'm pumping out about 30 to 40 a year if anyone ever needs one.
If they can move from Canada.
Oh, they do.
So James, this is my position. Everything I've listened very carefully to what you had to say, and I think you've thought it out well, and I think that you have a lot of great points. My concern is that in candor, today's generation is really all about games, and that's really all they can relate to. And so from that perspective, I'm very concerned, as Larry kind of alluded to, in terms of if they're not comfortable with tools, if they see it as a game, then I think they're missing the opportunity of what this industry is all about. And so my perspective is I think it could be a good tool to augment some of the training. I don't think that it could be the primary tool. And I'm very concerned for the time and the effort that we put into it that would be taken away from the real practical that would need to be done. And for that reason, I'm out.
Okay, and I'm not going to try and get you back in, but I will say, I get a lot of feedback of things about VR that say, it's not as good as doing it in person. 100%, it's not. But you know what? Texting isn't the same as me having a one-on-one phone call, and virtually, Gator Tank, not the same as me sitting in front of you. But you know what? It enables people to do it that weren't able to before. I can teach kids between 8 and 4 Monday to Friday. You can teach them, your staff, throughout the regular workday. But when they're at home at 8, 9 o'clock at night, kids are in bed or screaming in the other room, this would enable them to do that extra little bit. It would add to that training. It's not to replace it. I know that there is a manufacturer out there who's doing some replacement of training with just VR. However, that isn't the goal. The goal here is one, attracting students, and then two, to help people move into new areas and get new skills that they can then practice in person. So it would never take the place of a senior tech sitting down with you.
Again, I appreciate it. I wish you all the luck in the world. And, Larry's a games man, so he can help support you. I support him.
It was the jacket, wasn't it?
No.
I promise it used to fit before COVID.
Oh no, that looks like a jacket Dave would have.
Absolutely. I love it.
All right, James, you have two Gators who showed interest. We're gonna have to move on to the next presentation because we're a bit short on time. So James, if you could exit the stage, please.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so next we have entering the Gator tank, we have Nathan Lynch. Nathan, could you please reveal yourself? And your time begins now.
Hello, my name is Nathan Lynch, and I live in Denver, Colorado. I am a biomedical cybersecurity advisor at Kaiser Permanente, and I've been in the HTM field for 6 years. And now I've got a very big, bold, industry-changing idea for you Gators, and let's see if any of you are bold enough to accept. I want AAMI to invest in blockchain technology to become the central repository of medical device records. And that's a big statement. So let me tell you what I see as the current problem and what this is solving. Right now, we have an issue in our industry of siloed information, be it third party to the hospital or the device manufacturers themselves. A lot of this information stays in these silos and it doesn't get transferred when the medical device gets transferred. So if a hospital is selling used equipment or if a hospital is buying used equipment, none of that information is being transferred over. You don't know what devices have been in incidents. You don't know if any cyber attacks have occurred on these devices. Have they been compromised? All this information kind of just disappears once that device is sold. And what we need as an industry is some sort of central depository to ensure that when that device moves, that information is moving along with it, because that will increase the patient safety as we understand the medical devices more. And I know you're thinking, okay, so you want all these device records together. How are we going to keep track of them? Well, luckily, the FDA just recently came out with the UDI rule. And the UDI rule is the Unique Device Identification System Final Rule, which requires device labelers, typically the manufacturer, to include two things: to include a unique device identifier on the device's labels, packages of these devices. And then two, submit the device information to the Global Unique Identification Database. And with that, we would be able to leverage this unique identifier and tie it across everything from device creation to end of life. So we know everything that's going on throughout the device's history, no matter what hospital it's at, what rental company it's at, what third party it's at. So as it moves throughout its life cycle, that information is not being disappeared. It's tied to one unique identifier. And you're probably thinking this is probably going to be a huge undertaking. Yes, it probably will be. But guess what? In 1984, a man named Edward Barnett III created a little company called Carfax. And at the time, Carfax had about 10,000 vehicle records. Now it has over 3 billion records. So there's actually a pretty amazing use case that has already happened that we can leverage their business model with. And it's a pretty sad reality when you're able to get more information on a used automobile than this life-saving equipment that you might be using on a patient. So let's get us caught up to that. Let's get excited about having a transformative technology help us usher in a new era of patient safety. And I bet you guys are wondering why I'm choosing blockchain technology. And right now, there's a lot of exciting use cases going on right now with it, be it for electronic patient health information, better clinical trials, drug traceability, vaccine wallets. So there's a lot of use cases looking at blockchain technology, specifically because of its unique properties as a technology being immutable, aka it cannot be changed once it's been uploaded to the blockchain. And traceability, you can trace the life cycle of this device through this blockchain technology. So there's a lot of use cases being developed within other parts of the medical industry. And as healthcare technology industry, we should be looking and leveraging these new technological applications and be pioneers in this field and figure out ways that we can transform our field as these new technologies arise. And ultimately, this future state of the medical device technology and medical device records would be able to be leveraged and be able to use the ability to get this information and make sure patient safety is ultimately preserved between hospital, third party, rental company. So you have this unified area where you can access this. And AAMI is in a kind of unique position as you're not a manufacturer, you're not repairing medical equipment, and you're not working with the third party. So you're actually kind of agnostic in that sense with device records. So I can't think of a better company to be able to be that central depository for equipment. And I'm sure as back in 1984, people didn't think you'd be able to get all these different automobile equipment information together into one depository, but here we are, and it's been done. So I think we have a pretty exciting reason why I think this could work out. And even beyond that, imagine the immense power to have when you can leverage all this different information and be able to start seeing trends within this data. I know some hospitals are looking at this already within their own bubble, but imagine if you can see one device keeps failing in New Orleans and Miami, but not in places like Denver. So maybe you have some sort of humidity issue and that information you can pass on to the manufacturer or pass on to the hospitals in these areas that we are seeing higher than normal failure rates. So there's a lot of exciting things you can leverage once you start being able to aggregate this data. And ultimately, what I see is there's a big hole right now in the way devices move throughout our system. And ultimately, when you have these holes, that's where patient safety concerns arise. So ultimately, my goal is to figure out a way to make these holes disappear so that we can ensure patient safety throughout the entire device's life cycle. Thank you.
Well, Nathan, I just want to say, I love your pitch here. I'm a dreamer just like you. I have this bright, shiny vision of what HTM could be, not only in the US, but globally. And actually part of what you're talking about, there's a big global push actually with the WHO along the lines of this, particularly tying it into a truly global medical device nomenclature system. So there's a lot of other big dreamers out there like this with you. And we've seen these use cases, we've seen the Kaisers, the VAs of the world, the ISOs of the world, use and conglomerate this data and say, hey, we see this pump has more use errors than this pump. Why? And can we give that feedback? A few things. So, a couple, I'll say, barriers to this. So the WHO has this huge push for this. There's been two very vocal countries, I'll say, against this. And one of them's the US. The other was Brazil. Like, we need more info, there's things. And obviously these are hotspots where medical device manufacturers really are, you know, and have, I'll say, a bigger voice in the governments. A few other things, I think we'd have to figure out some interoperability things. Medical device companies in the US have generally shied away from enhanced post-market surveillance. You probably know the FDA has some additional programs for that, but you know, kind of the data acuity, I would say they're concerned about. And then also this kind of ties in with the right to repair. So, you know, we'll have to figure out that balance. So I think this is a great idea. The hard part is, how do we do it? You know, how do we get everyone's buy-in? How do we make this truly something people could use? And, you know, even with COVID, like, it would have been great to know when places were surging, okay, they need more ventilators. Okay, they need more dialysis machines. And if we had a truly standard record, we would have been able to say, okay, this place out in Idaho that's not surging right now can send you 200 ventilators or 50 dialysis machines or things like that. So I really love this idea, but it is hard for me to see the whole picture of how we get there from here, given all of, I'll say, political aspects and just how people feel. We have so many disparate systems. So I like this idea, but I might need a little bit more of a roadmap to get on board a little further.
Definitely, and I completely understand. And that is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges, is connecting all this disparate systems together. But ultimately, after this crazy year with COVID, I think we have definitely seen an increased visibility to our industry and our field, which I think could ultimately be beneficial for this and for the overall roadmap of how do we connect all these different systems together. So I'm there with you 100% that it won't be an easy undertaking, but hopefully one day we can see that.
So Nathan, this is Dave. What I would say is I appreciate and applaud my fellow shark or alligator here and her enthusiasm. So a couple things from me. You know, I agree with everything she's saying in terms of I'm concerned about the how we get this thing to market, right? I mean, there's a whole bunch of pieces that, you know, you talk about cybersecurity, which was in your title. The issue for me is so there's a whole lot of uncertainty in terms of there's potential EPHI information that will be also included in these things. There's a concern about the standardization and the consistency, as one person would report it as a not duplicated service report versus somebody else saying it was a use error. And so, you know, my major concern around this would be the standardization and the consistency of the information, which I think is going to be the biggest challenge. And so, while I applaud the effort, I'm not sure that we would ever be, I mean, I'm sitting today with the FDA and the medical device servicing community and the challenges that we're having just on a micro scale in comparison to what you're trying to do. So why I'm saying it's there, there's some huge hurdles that would have to be overcome. And the other thing I'm concerned about is, so you talked about end of life. What happens if somebody decides they want to part this thing out? And there's components of which would be pertinent in terms of us knowing what happened and where it goes, because they will then support other devices that would go further. So while I applaud the effort, I think it's a good idea and I want to support it, I just think that there's a whole lot of stuff that would still have to be worked out at a much higher level.
Definitely. And I agree. This is probably maybe pie in the sky, but ultimately, I think it's important to be having these conversations sooner rather than later, so that maybe one day we can get to a place where this is feasible, if it's not feasible today.
So Nathan, Jenna and David, both some concerns on your end. Are you in or are you out for this one?
I'd like to hear from my fellow Gator here, Mr. Hertzler, and see what his thought process are before I decide completely.
I don't want to influence anybody, but you know, Nathan, good presentation, and I think you'd probably get 99.9% of everybody in the BMAT world to say, Yahoo, let's go do this. It makes sense. But if you look at reality, and I'm the guy that says nothing's impossible, this is as close as you can get. I mean, you know, a few years ago in front of the FDA, you had the chief physician medical officer of a prominent East Coast hospital stand up and say, yeah, I know about the Safe Medical Device Act. We refuse to report because of the potential for public perception. You have the CIO of one of the large sites saying, you're not allowed to use our data for anything, even if you strip off all of the identifying information, because there's still that possibility that 10 years from now, somebody will figure out how to determine that it was hospital data, and therefore the public perception could get in the way. I mean, you know that today, nobody puts anything that's true in the news. You can say anything you want, whether it's true or not, and half the people will bite on it and say, yep, that's true. I just think the risk is too high for this, for the hospitals, and it's the reputation side. It's fantastic for the equipment, but if you can solve the other part, and that's the part that's difficult. I mean, the rest is just technology, like you said. It's figuring out how to tie terabytes of data together on a day-to-day basis. Fantastic idea, but I got to go out. I think you're up against a hurdle that's just too big today.
Okay, so we have one Gator is out. Jenna, David, certainly sounds like there's promise, but also sounds like there was concerns on your end. Does that swayed you either way?
I think for me, it's a really big undertaking. I don't know if I can completely commit, but what I can commit, I think, Nathan, is to connect you with the folks that are maybe working on this at a global level and kind of get you connected with them so that you guys can all row the same way.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
So, and for me, I do think it's a phenomenal undertaking. I think it would be revolutionary in the industry, and the value that it would bring would be insurmountable. I don't even know if we could figure out what the value could be. So what I would say is because I'm fairly active in the safe medical devices community that's going on right now, I'd like to, with your permission, either bring you in as a guest or, have you give me some more data that I can submit to the group and see what their perspective is. And so while I'm not sure that we can buy all in yet, maybe if we take a little chomp of it and take a little bite of the elephant and we start taking pieces of it, we can start to introduce this in other places and see where we can go. If you're okay with that, I would support it in that fashion.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan.
All right, sounds great. Nathan, thanks so much. You could please turn off your camera and mute, and we'll thank you. Okay, so next we have, coming into the Gator tank, Ian Contreras. Could you please reveal yourself and enter the tank? Hi, Ian. Your time begins now.
Hello, Gators. My name is Ian Contreras. I'm 22 years old, and I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'm currently a clinical engineering intern at the VA North Texas healthcare system. I'm also currently pursuing my master's from UConn's clinical engineering program. I've been in the HCM field for a relatively long time, give or take 9 months. And despite my limited time in the field at a young age, I've learned a lot and developed a genuine excitement for HTM. HTM has already given me so much, and I'd like to offer AAMI a way to ensure the future success and growth of the HTM field. But what does that involve exactly? I think it involves getting the Gen Z youth and population excited about a future in HTM to not only fill the gaps of a continuously growing workforce, but also provide strong members excited to make their own mark on the field. Now, how would AAMI be able to do that? I see this solution as a two-part approach. 1, enhance your digital marketing, and 2, leveraging connections with existing communities and organizations. Now, to better explain these points, I'd like to ask Ms. Jenna, if you have your phone nearby you, if you could go to your settings for me. And I'm assuming you have an iPhone, correct? Yes. Could you please navigate to your settings and go to your screen time?
Oh no.
And when you're ready, please reveal your average screen time for the week.
All right, this might be, where do I find the screen time?
If you scroll down, it should just be a bar that says screen time.
You need a biomed to help you?
You know what? I have not had my screen time on.
Oh. Well,
but I would venture to say at least 2 hours a day.
2 hours a day? Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think that's a pretty good average for someone who works a lot and is always on their phone. What's interesting about that, and 2 hours again is pretty good. the average Gen Z person uses their phone and their average screen time is about 10 hours a day. So that's almost half their day spent looking at their smartphone. And research shows that almost 98% of future Gen Z will have access to a smartphone, and they usually learn a lot of stuff through a smartphone and introduced a lot of things through it. So obviously Gen Z is a digital communicator. So I think the best way to attract them to the field is through their smartphone. AAMI already has a Twitter, YouTube, and I think even a podcast, all of which I think are great, but could use some improvement. In addition, I think they could expand to other areas like Instagram and Snapchat. To me, as your audience grows through these social media avenues, the youth will be more accessible to receive information about getting involved in HTM, what it is exactly, and also getting involved in the organizations related to HTM and also some events that other HTM organizations might put on. If Gen Z is already going to be glued to their smartphone, why shouldn't some of the content they absorb be HTM related? The second part of the solution involves solid partnerships with existing organizations. The ones I think would be most beneficial to HTM are organizations like NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, SWE, Society of Women Engineers, Biomedical Engineering Society, and Engineering Ambassadors, and also the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. All these organizations are national organizations that have members already looking for career opportunities, especially in the biomedical engineering field and HTM field. And they perform outreach to kids and teenagers about getting involved in STEM fields. So to me, one great example that this could be helpful to AAMI is that AAMI already has HTM in a box. So why not give the box to organizations that already utilize it and can make it reach its best potential? By working with AAMI to promote the HTM career field, these organizations would help get the Gen Z youth interested in the HTM field, promote diversity in the community, and also offer a competent and strong future applicant pool. To me, I remember when I was looking for colleges and looking to what I wanted to major in, I was a little bit confused and not really sure. I only happened to stumble upon biomedical engineering just because I think I saw it on like top majors to go into for my school. But for me, I think it would have been a great opportunity if at a young age, I could have been shown what the STEM field was like, what engineering is like, and to me specifically what HTM is like, because I've already enjoyed the field so much. I think it's a great field for the youth to get involved in. So I think just having this type of relationship with these organizations that already do this outreach and can promote HTM would be great. And I'll leave it off with this. I've grown up with two mottos: leave things better than when you found them, and plan for the future. I think digital marketing and strong partnerships with these organizations I mentioned above will help AAMI to do both for the healthcare technology management field. It would be exciting and inspiring to see more and more people get into this field, as again, I've already fallen in love with it, and to see it grow and get good and dedicated people into it. So please, Gators, help me help you build upon the strong foundation that the past generations of the HTM workers have already laid out. And let's get the youth excited about a future in HTM and in a future which they truly enjoy what they do, as I'm sure all of you can attest to. Thank you.
So Ian, this is Dave. Great presentation. Thank you. The question becomes, is you alluded to the fact that AAMI does a lot of stuff already. The difference being that you feel like the medium should be on, the iPhone platform or the Android or whatever the case is. You're saying essentially continue what you're doing, tweak it a tad, but do it more on the mobile apps versus just in general on the web or stuff. Is that really what I'm hearing? Is that what we're talking about?
I think that there's already a good presence that you have within the digital space and social media community. I think, as you kind of said, it could be improved, but what I'm saying is more that AAMI can really kind of dig down deep and kind of figure out a way to better present the information to the youth. Again, through social media. I don't really see it as in particular apps. Obviously Instagram and all that are through apps, but just the media space. I think it's important to recognize that, again, the Gen Z youth is a people and generation that's going to be coming up, going into these different fields. And so I think in order to get to them as soon as possible, it's reaching them through their digital device or their smartphone. I think we're not get everybody. I think that's kind of a big undertaking, but mostly everyone.
So just a clarifying question. And so again, what I'm hearing you say is that, do you have specifics that you would use or say, or is it basically taking some of the same thing they're doing, but putting in a different medium and a different platform that might reach to the younger generation a little bit more through mobile devices?
So I guess one example I could say is, so you already have a YouTube channel, as I saw. I think it's called AAMI Connect. I think in that YouTube channel, there's uploads of different shows or events that you already put on. And I think it's good for the current community. I mean, it offers great information about the field currently, but I think it doesn't really promote what HTM has to offer. You know, I mean, me being a young person, I see on YouTube or even TikTok, for example, like all these different creators showing what they do in the career fields. And I think it's such an easy medium to do. And the attention span of people my age and even younger is like only 8 seconds. But to like really show what is in that field on a quick form that I think, again, people have access to, it makes it a lot easier for them to get excited about. So I think making YouTube videos that are more towards the youth, or Instagram posts that, again, hit the what they'd be looking for. I think that's what I'm really more focused on.
Thank you.
Ian, I think it's essential that businesses figure out how to court the Gen Z employees. And you had sent out, or potential employees, you had sent out some little flyers, characterizations of the Gen Z workforce, you know, Gen Z in the workplace, and a couple of them, workplace attitude. They demand workplace equality, desire career growth over higher salaries, value meaningful connections with coworkers and management more often than millennials. They're very entrepreneurial. They tend to value digital communication more than they would face-to-face. None of those things really describe what BMET programs are today. You know, so are we talking about something that's really important? Can we really attract them in there? I mean, a huge number of BMET shops and hospitals are very small numbers of people. Some of them are in very large groups. So, you know, the social or the, you know, the ability to get promoted, those types of things might be very, very different depending on who you work for or where you are. From those types of characteristics, you know, in thinking about what's actually in a hospital, in terms of the type of work that, you know, the typical BMET has to do on a day-to-day basis, is it a good fit? Can we figure out how to make that a good fit? Because I do think this is a fabulous idea. I just want to figure out how to make it work.
I think so. I think to what you tested to, understanding what the Gen Z has, their mindset is, and kind of shaping what we present to them through those social media avenues. I think that's really going to be the hardest part of it. I mean, I did totally understand where you're coming from, where it could be an issue to see where we are in the BMET workforce and how that kind of applies to, you know, the Gen Z youth. But I don't think there's any reason that we can't shape it to be better, to attract them more into the field.
I mean, hospitals still have a lot of equipment running on Windows 95. That's not really a Gen Z thing, so.
True, exactly.
Ian, so I would say this recording also proved that I'm an old millennial. So, you know, in looking at the native technology folks, so like Gen Z, people who've grown up with this, you know, is TikTok the next frontier? Is it Twitch? I don't even know if that's still a thing. You know, what's the next frontier here? And I think similar to Larry, you know, how do we mold our content into that 8-second or get that funnel into a channel where people can kind of come and subscribe and do those things? What do you think the next frontier is here?
So to me, I already see that you have AAMI Connect, and it's kind of, at least how I view it, it's kind of your social media interplay to how you get your information out there. So to me, I think revamping that AAMI Connect to make it to have those videos I was talking about for YouTube or even TikTok, because I can see where it's kind of a struggle for an organization like AAMI to kind of go into these spaces where it's maybe not as traditional to have your information and content out there. But I think if you can do a branch of AAMI through AAMI Connect to really allow the creativity that connects to these Gen Z youth. I think that's where I would take this idea.
You know, again, I applaud the concept of trying to figure out ways to get more people in the industry, because that's what we need more than anything in the world. You know, I'm challenged to figure out, as an old guy, obviously not a Gen Z guy. I'm struggling to figure out, what does this look like? You know, we for 35 years, I've talked about how we can get more people in the industry, and you know, this is another great conversation, but I'm not seeing meat to a bone. I'm not seeing what that would look like specifically. So I'm just trying to figure out how we would take that and move it from here. I'm not saying can, I'm not saying we don't, I definitely want to, but I'm not seeing that.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. I think that's kind of why I presented the idea. I myself, I don't have all the answers to it. I figured the people, the Gators here, would help me kind of reshape the idea to somewhere where we could actually see it moving forward.
Oh, you think us old people would know how to do that?
Well,
Look
I think you know the, I think you know the field and community better than I do, and I think because I know more the younger generation, I think that interplay will really help mold something that can actually work. And to be honest, I see it, the social media aspect being more of a support to the organization partnerships, because I see that being more where the actual involvement of you promoting that with organizations to kind of get the HTM name out there to the younger generation through, like I said, the outreach that they already provide.
Ian, we do HTM in a box, or AAMI does HTM in a box. So, people or representatives who are partners with AAMI or members of AAMI go out and present to groups. So whether they be, high schoolers, middle schoolers, college age students, do you think that's kind of appropriate moving forward, or do you think we should be moving more towards a digital media strategy there?
I think you can still do the digital media strategy and the in-person. I think though that this type of information that you're providing can be better absorbed through people that they can relate to. So, I mean, the organizations I was talking about, they're more for collegiate people. And so I remember when I was going out, because I was part of Engineering Ambassadors, I remember I was going out to these high schools and middle schools, teaching the kids about engineering, either through a short presentation, sometimes about specific engineering fields, and then doing a demo with them. They were really able to absorb what I was telling them, maybe not fully all the technical parts, but they got excited about potentially career in engineering. And because these organizations are already doing it, we don't have to really ask, people of AAMI to do more than what they're doing. Just allow the organizations through a partnership to have HTML box and present it in their own way through their outreach.
So I'm not a Gator, obviously, but I'm a simple Florida man. As I've been listening to this, Ian, I'm actually on the social media team here at AAMI. So we are in charge of AAMI's YouTube account and all those different channels. One thing that I'd like to offer you, if you're interested, is to have a meeting with our social media team at AAMI and see what sort of ways we might be able to reach Gen Z. Because I think a lot of us are also elder millennials who might not understand things like the TikToks and stuff like that. Is that something you'd be interested in?
I think, yeah, any way I can try and get this idea working, I think that'd be great, just to meet the team and see what they kind of have in their minds and kind of let them know what I think.
We'd love to know, yeah.
Well, Ian, thanks very much. I appreciate you jumping into this, even with, you said, with, did you say 900 months of experience? No, 9 months of experience.
Yeah, 9 months.
Fantastic. Appreciate you bringing that up.
All right, thank you, Gators.
So much.
You got the same amount of time as Larry, so you're good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Ian.
So, okay, so that's all the presentations so far. So next steps for the Gators, we're going to take some time to deliberate, just a few minutes. We each have our secure communication devices that we're going to be using for this purpose. So everyone just hang tight for a little bit, and we're going to come to a consensus. We are ready with our decision. We've deliberated furiously over our secure communication devices, as I'm sure everyone could see. We're going to start off with some short remarks from each of the Gators before we conclude with our final decision.
So, yeah, go ahead.
David, do you want to go first?
Sure. So these guys can hear us?
Yes.
All of them?
I believe so. I hope so.
Can we have them? Should we have them turn on their videos?
That's what
Sure. Yeah. Everyone turn on your videos. Everyone.
that'd be great. I think
Yeah.
that's terrific.
Great idea.
I see Ian.
Yeah, we got
Nathan.
Nathan.
And last but not least should be James. James, you coming back? There we go.
Oh, here we go. Okay.
There he is.
It takes a little while from Canada.
All right, guys, listen, for what it's worth, from my perspective, I can't thank you enough for your time and the effort and the energy that you put into this. And I think it's been very meaningful. And candor, all three of you guys had some great suggestions, and we should do everything we can to support you wherever we can. From my perspective, I would just say that, James, your idea is great. We just need to figure out how that can work and how we can tie it in to be supportive, not necessarily, I don't want it to be replacing of, and that'd be my 2 cents in that. Nathan, I think that's phenomenal. And I would like to offer bringing you to the Medical Device Servicing Collaborative, to the community to talk about what, if anything, we can do in terms of that. And lastly, Ian, I think it's great. We just need to put some meat to the bone so we can figure out how we can do it. So on a personal note, thank you so much for your time and your efforts and energy towards trying to enhance the HTM community, because that's what we're all here for. So I appreciate it.
And I want to echo that. I think it takes a lot of guts to come here and in front of us. And obviously during COVID, this is a little different, us all being remote. So you don't get the same body language and kind of understanding of how we're feeling during your presentation. So kudos on the courage, and definitely A for effort tonight. Thanks for stepping into the Gator tank and taking all of our feedback. And I think they were really great presentations. James, I think you have a great idea there. I think a proof of concept is the perfect way to go. Here, it's just figuring out how we do that and where we utilize this. Nathan, I think you have a great big idea, a big hairy idea, and it's great. And there's some folks in various pockets working on this. So I'll definitely commit to connecting you with our international community. And Danielle has graciously also via AAMI offered to connect you with our MedSun POC, Julie. So that's with our FDA and the post-market surveillance, as you probably already know. So I think there's gonna be some good connections there. And Ian, I love your excitement, and people like you remind me that I'm now old in this community. Every 6 months, I'm old and rusty, and it takes people like you to remind us, what new generations are looking for. So I think you have a very doable idea, and it's just finding how we craft that message.
Yeah, thanks to everybody. I think if you take a look at all three of the ideas, each in its own right would make a major contribution to this industry. Three different areas, three different ways of going about it, but all of them could be absolutely incredible. And and in terms of the actual impact to this profession. So I'd love to figure out how to make them all work. Nathan, as I mentioned before, I think there's just some insurmountable things that, maybe the younger generation can figure out how to take care of. I'm sure you will at some point. So, so don't give up from that standpoint. I really wanted to find a way to get behind all of them, but just didn't feel like I could quite do that. Ian, I really like where you're coming with that. We need the Gen Z folks bad, and so figuring out how to really connect with them. Maybe we can learn more and do a little bit more going forward. And James, I know Dave's a virtual person, so I mean I love to hear anything about virtual reality. Kind of getting Dave's world a little bit. But I really like the idea, and I think the more you talked about it, the more you sold about it, the more I found myself more interested in it than I did when I just read the blurb to begin with. So again, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it, and I'd love to see all of the ideas come to fruition.
Great.
Yeah, thanks. Danielle.
And Ian, James, and Nathan, I just wanted to sincerely thank you all for coming on today, sharing your ideas with us, and being brave and bringing them forward. We can't do everything we do at AAMI without all of our volunteers and people in the field bringing forward suggestions. Almost everything we do comes from a suggestion from the field, and we want to try the best we can to bring all of that to life. So Nathan, while there may be a lot of hurdles with yours, we look forward to working with you and making connections to bring your voice forward. James, I know we've already worked on some of your grant proposals for your idea, and we're happy to continue to support you. And Ian, I'm looking forward to working with you with the marketing team to see how we can make our marketing appeal better to the Gen Z, because I am also, I guess, considered a geriatric millennial, and you know, we need to get through that hurdle as well. So thank you all on behalf of everyone at AAMI.
And thanks everyone for your presentations. There is one, you know, we have lots of projects to work out with anyone, but there is one overall winner that the Gators have selected for the Gator tank. And the 2021 winner of the AAMI Alligator tank is James. James, you stole our hearts from all the way up in Canada, in real life, not just virtually. And we look forward to working with you. And thanks so much for our Gators, for Danielle for putting this together, and for everyone who participated today. It's just such wonderful ideas. We look forward to working with all of you.
Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate your times.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night.